7 million years ago, the Earth looked nothing like the world you know today. Imagine a land where dense forests stretched endlessly, where rivers carved their way through untouched wilderness, and where strange creatures moved freely, beasts you would hardly recognize. But hidden in this mysterious landscape, something extraordinary was happening. It was quiet, almost invisible at first. Yet it was the very first spark of what would one day become us, humans. This was the dawn of our story, the moment our ancestors, long before they were even called human, began taking their first steps on a journey that would shape the destiny of the world. It wasn't a sudden leap. It wasn't a dramatic transformation. It was a fragile beginning, uncertain and small. But it was also unstoppable. From that moment, nothing on Earth would ever be the same. The world at that time was dangerous. Saber-toothed predators lurked in the shadows, giant birds swooped down upon the ground, and survival depended on sharp instincts. Our ancestors were not strong, not fast, not even particularly fierce. They were fragile beings, caught between two worlds, still clinging to the safety of the trees, yet daring to step onto the open ground. One wrong move, and they would become prey. And yet, they dared. Fossils tell us that one of the earliest known ancestors, perhaps Sahelanthropus jadensis, walked the Earth around this time. A small creature with a mixture of ape-like and human-like features, short, stocky, with a face that might remind you of a chimpanzee, but with eyes that looked forward in a way that seemed to ask questions. That skull, found buried in the deserts of Chad millions of years later, whispers a secret. Maybe, just maybe, this was one of the first beings to stand upright. To try balancing on two legs. And standing on 2 feet changed everything. It was not just about walking. It was about seeing further across the grasslands, about freeing the hands to carry, to hold, to strike, to touch. It was the first tiny rebellion against nature's design. With every hesitant step, our ancestors were unlocking doors that would one day lead to tools, to fire, to language, and to civilizations. But in those early days, it was simply survival. Every step was a gamble, and every sunrise was a chance that might not come again. Imagine the fear in their eyes as they climbed down from the trees at dawn. The grass brushed against their legs, hiding the movements of predators. The wind carried scents of danger. Their hearts raced with instincts telling them to run back to safety. Yet something else pulled them forward: curiosity, hunger, the need for something more. It was as if nature itself was testing them. Will you stay hidden forever, or will you dare to walk into the unknown? And they chose to walk. Step by step, stumble by stumble, they began a path no other creature had dared to take. Their footprints, pressed into the soft earth, were small, fragile, but they were the first human footprints in history. They didn't know it, of course. They were just surviving, but with each step, they were writing the opening lines of the greatest story the Earth has ever seen, the story of us. But the world was cruel. Death was everywhere. A rustle in the grass could mean a leopard ready to pounce. A slip from a tree could mean broken bones, and in the wild, broken bones meant the end. The nights were filled with terrifying sounds, roars, screeches, and silence too heavy to bear. Yet, somehow, they endured. Somehow, they found food, shared shelter, and clung to one another in small groups, because alone, no one could survive. And maybe that was the first lesson humanity ever learned. Together, we are stronger. Generations passed. Children grew and learned to climb, to forage, to watch the skies. Some fell, some vanished, their bones lost to time. But others lived, and slowly, over countless lifetimes, something was changing. Their spines curved differently, their hips tilted for balance. Their legs grew stronger, more suited to walking than to swinging through branches. Nature was shaping them, little by little, without them even knowing. 7 million years ago, the world had no idea what it was about to witness. No one could have imagined that from these fragile creatures would one day rise cities of steel, towers of glass, and voices that could reach across oceans. But in those early days, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the next step, and the courage to keep moving forward. And so, in the vast silence of prehistoric Africa, where only the sounds of the wind and the calls of animals filled the air, our ancestors began their journey. A journey of survival, of struggle, of resilience. A journey that would last millions of years. A journey that would lead to us, sitting here today, remembering them. But how did they survive? What secrets allowed them to endure when so many other species disappeared forever? And what hidden sacrifices were made on this long road that we now call human history? The answers lie in the shadows of time, buried in bones and stone, waiting to be uncovered. And what those answers reveal will change the way you see yourself forever. The forest floor was damp, alive with insects and small creatures scurrying under leaves. Each step that our ancestors took carried risk, but also possibility. Imagine a small group of them, perhaps a mother carrying her young, a father scanning the horizon, and a few others moving cautiously behind. Their eyes constantly shifted between the safety of the trees and the dangers of the open ground. Yet something kept urging him forward. Something more powerful than fear. Hunger. Food was everything. Survival depended on it. In the high branches, fruit was scarce, sometimes rotten before it could be eaten. But on the ground, scattered across the plains, new opportunities appeared: fallen fruit, roots, seeds, even small animals too weak to escape. To reach them, they had to risk stepping out into the unknown. And so they did, slowly, carefully. Every movement was a gamble, every sound a warning. Predators ruled this world. Great cats with razor-sharp teeth crouched in the shadows. Hyenas, far stronger than the ones you know today, followed smells of weakness. Giant birds of prey circled above, waiting for a chance to swoop. Our ancestors had no claws, no fangs, no armor. All they had were their wits, their growing cooperation, and those two trembling legs. But those legs were changing the game. Standing taller meant seeing further across the grasslands. It meant spotting danger before it struck. It meant carrying food, stones, even branches. Slowly, step by step, the forest was no longer their only home. They were learning to balance between two worlds, the shelter of trees and the vastness of the savanna. Night was the hardest. Darkness swallowed everything. Fires did not yet exist. The moon offered little comfort, and every sound was a threat. The rustling grass might hide a predator. The silence itself was terrifying, because silence meant something was stalking them. Families huddled together for safety, their young tucked close, their eyes wide, waiting for dawn. It was in these long, endless nights that the bonds between them deepened. Without each other, they would not survive. Perhaps this was when the first sparks of what we now call humanity began to shine, not in tools or fire, but in care. A mother refusing to leave her weak child behind. A group sharing food instead of fighting for it. A lookout warning others of danger. In these acts, small and simple, lay the seeds of compassion, of unity, of survival together. Generations passed. Each generation carried tiny changes in their bodies, changes so small they could hardly be noticed in a single lifetime. But across thousands of years, they added up. Backs straightened, legs lengthened, hands became freer. The more they walked upright, the more nature shaped them to fit this new way of life. Evolution was slow, but it was unstoppable. And yet, danger was never far away. Imagine a young ancestor venturing too far from the trees, lured by the smell of ripe fruit. The grass shifts. A shadow leaps. In seconds, life is gone. Their story ends there, but for every loss, others learned. They became more alert, more cautious, more united. It was a harsh teacher, but it was shaping survivors. Water was another test. Rivers teemed with crocodiles, their jaws waiting silently just below the surface. To drink was to risk death. But without water, there was no life. So they learned to move together, to keep watch, to take turns. Each small success meant another day lived, another chance for their children to grow. The climate, too, was changing. Forests began to thin, grasslands spread wider, and food became harder to find. These changes forced choices. Those who adapted, who dared to explore new ways of living, survived. Those who clung only to the trees slowly vanished, their lines ending in silence. Our ancestors, however, continued forward. They did not know it, but they were becoming something new. Perhaps one evening, as the sun set over the horizon, a small child stood unsteadily on 2 feet, reaching for its mother's hand. A simple act, so ordinary, yet so powerful. That fragile moment of balance was not just a child's first step. It was humanity's first step. A step that echoed through millions of years, reaching even us today. And so, through hunger, fear, and endless danger, they endured. They carried within them something invisible, something stronger than tooth or claw, the will to keep moving forward. And in that will lay the promise of everything that was yet to come. But survival was never guaranteed. Many species that walked beside them disappeared forever. What made our line endure while others vanished? What hidden strength allowed us to carry the flame when so many others faded into darkness? The answer lies in what happened next, in the way our ancestors began to transform not just their bodies, but their minds.